Hi, we're here again in our kitchen in suburban New York, and we're cooking today from Cooks Illustrated, one of my favorite magazines, the November-December 2012 issue. We're making almond biscotti. Today is the day before Thanksgiving. We're off to my sister's in Levittown tomorrow, and I have been charged with dessert. So I'll be making this almond biscotti for the Vin Santo we hope to have. And I'm making a chiffon cake, and more about that in the next video. But let's concentrate on this biscotti, shall we? So the recipe calls for 1 1/4 cups of almonds. We'll have to toast the almonds, and I'll show you how to do that soon. Separate this. It should be 1 1/4, not 1 1/4 together, because you'll be grinding those differently. 1 1/2 teaspoons of almond extract and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, this is no endorsement for any of these manufacturers. It's just what's at hand. 1 3/4 cups of flour, baking powder, 2 eggs and 1 egg yolk. And I see right now that there's an egg shell in this egg. I'm sorry, this is not an egg yolk. Everybody can see what this is, and it's an egg white. But I see there's an egg shell, so we'll get rid of that. And some Gold's horseradish. No, that's not true. That's where I keep my table salt, because it's much easier to get at than in the cardboard salt box. A cup of sugar, and 4 tablespoons of butter. For our international audience, hello Berlin, we will be converting that to whatever you use in the international world. I also have a baking sheet on which we'll bake the almond biscotti logs. One other thing, at this point you want to preheat the oven. If you have a fancy pants oven, then the oven preheats, will tell you exactly when it's preheated. That is about 20 minutes. But for us here, we do not have fancy pan ovens, so we have to preheat that for at least 20 minutes. At a temperature that says here 325 degrees. So preheat the oven now, and then we'll start assembling our ingredients. So we want to prep how we're going to be putting these almond logs that will later become biscotti on the baking sheet. So you're going to need some parchment paper, a pencil, you know what that looks like, and a ruler. This is not a ruler, but this is what we have on hand. So you're going to be making 2 rectangles, 8 by 3-inch rectangles. So, whoopsie. Here's the first one. I've marked off the 8 inches at each side. So 1 here and 1 here. You can see the markings there. So now you have 2 rectangles, 8 by 3-inch rectangles, and we're gonna spray this with vegetable spray. And then we're going to turn it over, and this is what's going to be our guide when we roll this out. But for now, we're just going to put this aside. And what we're going to do is do something that's double duty. We're going to toast the almonds, and this you'll have to remeasure them now. So the oven is preheating, and we'll toast the almonds. So they're just lightly toasted, and then we're going to take them out of the oven 6 minutes later. Nicely toasted, and then we're going to continue with our recipe. So while the almonds are toasting, I've assembled my food processor, which you'll need to complete the recipe, and I have 4 tablespoons of butter that I'm going to melt, and then I'm going to allow them to cool. So this is, you're using, moving things along. Here we are melting the butter. It's almost done. You want to swirl it around. You don't want to get the butter brown. But you want it to melt, just melt, not start turning color. So we've taken the almonds out of the oven. They're hot, so be careful. You want to measure out a 1/4 cup of almonds, and put those aside. Be careful, this is hot, so don't do this at home. Don't do as I do, just as I say. There's a 1/4 cup of almonds, and then the rest of the almonds measure the 1 cup. So you'll put them back in the bowl, allow them to cool a little bit. We're going to process the almonds in the food processor. They are pretty cool. It's very cold in this house. It's winter time. process them. So take a look at the almonds. You've coarsely processed them, some more processed than others, that's all right. But just make sure there's some integrity to them. That is, they're just coarsely chopped. We're going to remove these from here. This is the cup of almonds, remember? I'm using a 1/4 cup of almonds, and I'll put that in the work bowl of the food processor, and I'm going to grind this really fine, and I'll show you what that looks like. Here's some the finely ground 1/4 cup of almonds. You could see the difference between the coarsely chopped almonds and the finely ground almonds. To this, we're going to add our dry ingredients. So we're going to add the flour. This is 1 3/4 cups flour. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Usually I measure everything out, but I didn't want to dirty one other bowl, so I'm measuring right from here. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt. This is regular table salt that I've moved into a more convenient jar. And we're going to pulverize this now, mix it all up. This is what it looks like, the flour, the almonds, the baking powder, and the salt. About 15 seconds, and then we're going to dump this out into this bowl here. Not dump, we're going to gently, we're going to put the bowl back in the food processor. And we're going to add the 2 eggs. Oopsie. And we're going to whip these eggs up, the 2 eggs, not the egg white. We're going to whip these eggs up for about 3 minutes in the food processor. So after 3 minutes, you can see this is what the eggs look like. They're really higher in volume, almost doubled in volume than what they were when we put them in, when we cracked them in there. And look how light they are. These are ready. So to this, I'm going to add the 1 cup of sugar, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this on and use the feed tube to add the sugar in a slow stream, and then continue to whip that up for another 15 seconds. Okay, I'm turning this on. We're going to add the melted butter that has already cooled. Here's that melted butter. We're also going to add 1 1/2 teaspoons of the almond extract. One and a half. This will really kick up the almond flavor. And 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Thanks. That was a little bit more than 1/2, so we're not going to add it all. And then we're going to whip this up again. Don't forget to put the feed tube back on. Actually, the feed tube is on. This is thin here. And then whip this up again. Everything's been added. All the ingredients have been added. We're going to add this now. We're going to transfer this to a bowl. We'll make sure you get everything out. Waste not, want not. And then we're sprinkling the flour mixture in here. 1/2 of the flour mixture. And in a folding motion, we're combining this. You want to not overbeat this. And you'll see that it takes a little bit for it to be incorporated. Always in a kind of folding motion, twirling the bowl until it's almost fully incorporated. Then we're going to add the rest of the flour mixture and the almonds, the 1 cup of almonds. Again, folding it, twirling the bowl until it's all incorporated. This takes about a minute or so. So here it is, fully combined. Looks terrific, smells terrific. I love biscotti. And now we're going to transfer it to that parchment paper. Parchment paper is if you roll it in the opposite direction from the way it comes off the roll, it's much easier to lay flat then. There we are. Okay, so you wanted to divide the dough into 2 equal portions. And let's go divide this piece here. The bottom here, there's some unincorporated bits, which I'm doing my best to incorporate. So here is this. And then here is this. And you want to fill it into the space on the rectangle, right? Make sure it goes down. I'm going to even it out. So this is the finished piece. We're now going to spray it with oil spray, lightly. Thanks. And with our spatula, we're going to smooth it out. It is almost, it's not perfect, but think about your edges and how you want them to come out. This is the extra egg white we needed. I'm whipping it up. With the egg white whipped up, I'm going to brush, whoopsie, I'm going to brush the top of these rectangles with the egg white. Give it a nice browning. All done. Now we're going to pop it in the oven for at least 25 minutes. 325-degree oven for 25 minutes. Here's what they look like. A little golden on top from the egg wash. And then I'll show you what to do next. So the logs are cooled. It took 30 minutes to cool the logs. I'm taking a serrated knife and a cutting board, putting the logs on here. I keep calling them logs because they look like that to me, but they were the rectangles. And slightly on a bias that is not straight like this, but at an angle, into 1/2-inch pieces. I'm going to cut these biscotti. I'm going to assemble the biscotti on here. These smell delicious, by the way, and I'm setting them over the baking sheet that we bake the biscotti in. We're going to assemble all of these. Once we're finished with this, we're going to pop them back in the 325-degree oven, and they're going to bake for 30 minutes, halfway through. So at the 15-minute mark, we're going to turn them all over, and then at the 30-minute mark, we're going to take them out. So here they are. The biscotti are now out of the oven. They're sitting here to cool, and you can see that they're nicely browned and dried, but not too hard. One thing that you can do with the biscotti is maybe melt some chocolate and dip the biscotti, one piece in chocolate. Something else you can do to gild the lily, as it were, is in the egg wash you can put sugar over it, and so you could have a nice sugared topping to the biscotti. But any way you slice it, here's the biscotti. So enjoy, and I hope for you they're as delicious as they are for me.